Hello, hello. I'm just going to check things as I've been doing to make sure that we're looking the way I want to be looking. And hopefully everyone's having a nice Friday. It's 5 o'clock here on the West Coast in the US, and I know it's Saturday down in New Zealand. And yeah, it's just been, hopefully everyone's had a good week. I've had a very productive week. And it's been a good week, some good moments, and been busy doing everything. And I see something is trying to work here before we get going. Come on, come on. See, this is when I need Scott to be handling everything for me. There it is. Okay. And I'm muted. Perfect. All right. So again, thank you so much for joining me. I'm Mark from Eclectic Arts. I'm not in the right frame. There we go. And many of you know me from doing the virtual tour with Alice. I've done leg 1 and leg 2 and the interim shows in July. And we have leg 3 coming up in October. But in the meantime, I'm doing interviews when I can kind of fit them into my schedule. And this interview, I absolutely wanted to fit into my schedule. It's part 2 from the folks from Life is Easy. We have both the folks, and I'm going to get to an introduction really soon here. But I wanted to mention that if you're watching this live stream, that at 7 o'clock on the West Coast, the Fun Table Sessions Part 5, Round 5, whatever you want to call it, that's going to kick off at 7 p.m. So I've got another live stream coming. So once we're kind of in between, if you want to grab something to eat, that's probably what I'm going to do. And then kind of get your beverages of choice ready. We're going to go and have some fun with some new questions. And I've got some news that I can also break to people during the fun session tonight. That's going to be a little bit different, just a little plus for anyone that tunes in. And yeah, so that's kind of what tonight's looking like. And I can also mention that on Sunday, oh boy, I have The Warning coming, and they have such a huge following. I put a social media post up yesterday, and I was just dumbfounded by how many likes were coming in. They're a wonderful band from Mexico, hard rock band, 3 sisters, and they're just up and coming. And I'm really looking forward to this. So on Sunday at 4 p.m. Pacific, that is when that's going to be happening. And then after that, I think it's going to be kind of just doing the fun table and wherever else I can fit things in. So hopefully, again, that you're having a good night. And again, thank you for joining me. So let's get to this. My guests this evening are the co-creators, co-writers, and co-stars of the hit web series Life is Easy from New Zealand. Please welcome to the Eclectic Arts Virtual Studio, Chye-Ling Huang and Cole Jenkins. And here we go.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, hello. How are we doing down in New Zealand?
Doing well.
Good. It's sunny
Saturday afternoon. It's beautiful.
Yeah, that sounds nice. It's, we have some sun here in Seattle right now. It was raining earlier. So, kind of our typical weather around here. And so as Cole found out when we talked a couple weeks ago, that I am such a fan of this show. And I've rewatched it, and even after we talked, I think I said during that interview that I was going to watch it again. I watched it more than one more time again, all 8 episodes. So I can't wait to let people know about it. For people that aren't familiar with it on Reverie, and then we're going to kind of start talking about some specific things in the episodes and anything else that I can kind of squeeze into the time. So one question I want to ask right off the top is that. Cole mentioned that both of you met like in college, drama school, that period of time. What do you remember about that? Either encounter, were you in a class, were you like at a party somewhere or student union building? What was going on when you first met?
Well, we went to intermediate school together, which meant we were about 12 and 13. So we were kind of in the sphere of each other's being. But we met as friends when we did the auditions for drama school. So in New Zealand, there's 2 quite prestigious drama schools, one in Auckland and one in Wellington. So we auditioned for the one in Auckland, and they take about 18 students a year, and hundreds of people audition. So it's pretty intense. And by the time you get to the callback weekend, you're like surrounded by 150 very high intensity people who are all striving extremely hard to be the biggest and loudest and brightest people that they could possibly be. So Cole and I, with our extremely awkward younger selves, and we were part of that crew who were just like, in there fighting tooth and nail. And somehow we kept ending up in the same groups together and the same scenes together, and we just kind of clicked. And then we ended up at McDonald's after the after the 2-day intense weekend. We just both ended up there and just chatted for a while, and it was like, we should be friends regardless of what happens, drama school or no. But then, I mean, we both got in, so.
Yeah.
This is just me being the way I am. What do you think would have happened if only one of you got into the school?
Well, that nearly did happen because I'm pretty sure, Chye-Ling, you got in off the bat, but I was on a short list. Could you believe it?
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, I was on a short list, and then so backup, and then I had actually started applying for other courses at Unitech to get into, just so I could start studying.
What would you have done?
I was gonna do. I think I was just gonna do their sort of drama course that wasn't like acting. I can't remember what they called it, but it was like it's sort of like a screen artsy course, but it wasn't a 3-year bachelor. I think it was just a 1-year.
Oh, that's the diploma.
Diploma or something like that. I think I was just going to use that to get started and then try again to get into the drama school. But yeah, I think it was like 2 weeks or just a couple of weeks before the course was due to start. I got a call saying, "Oh, a place has opened up for you. Do you want it?" I said yes. And then, the rest is history. So it nearly didn't happen.
Wow. Well, I'm glad it did happen.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. And one thing I wanted to ask about with the show, and we're going to get into more of the generalities of the show, but how do you feel that your off-screen friendship influenced the actual show itself?
How didn't it?
Yeah.
That's probably the question. The whole reason the show was made is because we are best friends who don't spend nearly enough time together because of our different work schedules. And I think for me in my adult life now, because I'm a freelancer and I do quite a lot of work, the biggest thing that I can do to preserve a friendship is to create a working relationship with someone and work on a project together. So I think we were both in that realm of thinking of like, how can we just hang out more? So it was kind of based on our friendship out like in a meta way outside of that to begin with anyway.
Okay. Yeah. Cole, anything you want to add to that?
Well, I think Chye-Ling is right in saying how didn't it influence the show and our writing together. Like, it meant that we got to spend heaps of time together, but it meant we could reminisce on lots of different experiences that we've had during our relationship, mostly a lot of our uni relationship during our time when we were at uni. And we could kind of reflect and joke about those fun times and think, how can we elevate this to put it into a film context to make it interesting for other people? So it was quite cool. So there are a lot of moments or scenes in the show that were of real experiences that happened when we were at uni. So that made things a lot of fun and led to a lot of laughter.
Okay. And when both of you were writing and developing the show, were you doing sessions where you're both together somewhere trying to hash out ideas, or you're trying to work on it separately and then come back together to kind of see what you've come up with?
Yeah, it was a mixture of both. I think we tried to do it together as much as possible, just because it was a lot easier, especially the main skeletons and outlines of everything. And then we would go away and kind of have a smash at the scene. So like often I would do the first draft of like the structure of the scene, and Cole's much better with dialogue, so he'd come past and do another pass where he could visualize. He would have trouble visualizing what the scene actually looked like or was about, but then I would have trouble kind of making it zingy and snappy because I'm thinking very much about theme and structure. So in that way, we worked really well together. And Cole had never written anything of this kind before, so it was just like a super lucky coincidence that we really balanced out each other's strengths.
Yeah, it was. I think that was really good in those ways, because sometimes you just get stuck on like 2 or 3 lines, and you just go, "This, what am I saying here, or what am I trying to say?" And that was when I would be able to like call or talk to Chye-Ling and say, what do we want this beat to be or to say? And she would help me confirm that, and I go, okay, blah blah blah, zing. And then usually we'd just be sending each other like text, I love this line, I love that line, oh my god. So yeah, that was a fun way to work and made it a lot easier for us both.
Okay, yeah, no, and that makes sense. And for folks out there that haven't seen the show and for some reason haven't watched my earlier interview, how would you describe it to just the general person that doesn't know what Life is Easy is about?
Chye-Ling, you're better at this.
I always
than I
leave
am.
this to Cole. I feel like I always make you do it. Life is Easy is a...
Well, it's your turn. It's your interview.
Okay, true. Life is Easy is a horny, wholesome comedy web series about two best friends who think they know everything about each other, but quickly find out that they do not when they swap bodies and find out about how their race and sexuality and gender actually is a big influence on their lives that they never considered before.
Okay, no, that makes sense. And I was going to ask about with the...
That's a good summary. That's good.
Yeah, yeah.
Ooh, I'm sweating. Whoosh.
That with the show, and there's many quirky things that happen in the show, and I don't want to give away too much for people that haven't seen it yet. But one thing I want to ask is that you had, I think it was in episode 2 when you have tennis sake, and was that an actual thing somewhere, or is that just something you created?
No, we came up with that. I think we have a lot of dumb ideas, and the way that Cole and I work the best is basically just trying to come up with the dumbest things that we can in order to make each other laugh. But then sometimes we'll just take an idea too far, and tennis sake is one of those. So it started off as like very much a joke, but we were trying to conceptualize something that was like in the vein of culturally appropriative bougie white people things. You know, like if they've got like a Mexican fiesta party that's, you know, terribly appropriative, that, you know, everyone turns up in high heels and sombreros and it's just the worst thing ever. Tennis sake was kind of in that vein, but our own invention. And I really hope it doesn't exist because it's kind of gross.
Okay, and what about the occupation for both Jamie Lee and Curtis, the characters? Were those very intentional about where you were going to have them work, or was it kind of like you got different ideas and those just seem to be the best ones?
Yeah.
Oh, you've gone quiet, Cole.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it took us a while to land on their jobs or their professions, particularly Curtis. Oh, have I? Can you hear me?
You're kind of going in and out.
I don't know.
I think it's just a super lag. Because we
Can you hear me?
now. Yeah, but you're like a minute behind.
I don't know what's happening. I didn't touch anything. Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Yes.
I can hear you. But like, yeah,
I think it's slowly syncing up again. Well, should I answer this question while Cole sorts this shit out?
yeah,
Can you hear me
maybe.
now? Oh, I don't.
Yeah, that's weird.
Oh, okay. It might be super lag. Okay.
Yeah. Well, to answer that question, I think the professions,
Oh,
we were trying to go for an angle where they were both sort of
That's
loserish
a pain.
and had nothing going on with their lives, but we also wanted them to be relatable in the way
Okay.
that they had ambitions.
Yeah.
So what we ended up with was Jamie Lee, like being in jobs that could potentially be quite cool, but in positions in that job that were like
I don't
very
know
low
what's
status.
happening.
So they
I
were
don't know
very
what
like
if I
they were
need
both fish out of water.
to change anything.
Okay.
Yeah, this is awkward.
Cole, let me see if I can put you back in the room for a second and bring me back out. See if that makes any difference. Let's see. It's still looking a little, like it's not in real time. Cole, can you hear us though? Yeah, now I'm not hearing anything from Cole.
Feels like the voice is the lagging bit, and then the rest is kind of okay.
Yeah, which is so strange because he was fine when we started, unless it's just a Wi-Fi connection or something. Cole, if you can hear this, can you maybe try to Can you try to leave the room and maybe rejoin us and see if that'll redo the connection or something? I'll just add you back into the stream. So I'm gonna remove you, and I'll see when he's trying to come back in, so we can kind of keep things moving. How was the comedy aspect for you? Is that something that was it easy to come by, or was it kind of difficult depending on your acting background?
Yeah, well, I've never really done comedy writing as such. I think a lot of my writing is quite like self-effacing and like quite sardonic. So that part of it kind of comes easily for me. But there's sort of, yeah, I think that was the reason we hired Amanda and Chris, because they're both quite ridiculous and funny people. And so most of the time we spent on set was just them cracking each other up, which then would make us laugh. And then, the vibe was always so much fun. But it was a stretch for me. And it's something that I feel like comedy is just, in my opinion, so much harder to nail than drama. There's a lot of confidence you have to have and a lot of knowledge of what beats work. And it was a challenge for me, particularly. I don't know about Cole, but I found it.
Everything's a challenge for me.
Yeah, even being on this call is a challenge for you.
Being on this call is a challenge, but I seem to be back. What did I miss?
Was the comedy aspect a challenge, or did it like kind of come naturally to you?
Well, I think we're funny. And so, yeah, so a lot of the times I think when we were writing stuff, I think it was easy to write what we thought was funny, but we did have to kind of check in every now and then and go, is this funny or is it just funny to us? And does that matter? Because sometimes it was fine if it was just funny to us, but it maybe wasn't going to be that relatable to other people. Sometimes we're like, I don't care, I really like it. And so, yeah, but I don't think
trust that it's like someone out there of the like hundreds of people who are watching it, like it will be someone's cup of tea,
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it was definitely my cup of tea. I was watching this.
You're the one person that validated our entire series. Thank you.
And that actually brings me up to this other question about, so what was the reaction locally versus the reaction internationally to the show?
We've found it really blew up overseas. Like in the first few days of it being on Reverie and the lead up to it being on Reverie and all the press that we'd put into the Reverie release was responded to pretty much instantaneously. Whereas in New Zealand, I mean, we're such a small pond, and I think a lot was sort of being made around that time. But for some reason, it just didn't, like, we didn't get much press around it. And I know we don't really have that much press. To be fair, like our queer community is still like growing in terms of its like reach and size, and, the publicity around queer stuff just isn't as mainstream or like, readily picked up, I think. But the response overseas has been amazing. We've been like absolutely blown away. We're very shocked and happy.
Okay. Well, and this obviously begs the question, and Cole kind of spoke to this a few weeks ago. Are there plans for a season 2? And if so, do you have any idea like what that might look like?
Yeah, what did Cole say?
I was like, no, absolutely not. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of her. I don't want to work with her anymore.
I'm done.
I quit. No, we do. Well, we were kind of we've had plans to do season 2, or at least ideas around what we could do for it, but we weren't 100% sure if it was going to be worth doing everything if people weren't responding well to it. But like after a lot of the feedback we've been getting since the Reverie release, it does kind of lean us a bit more towards at least wanting to get some things, ideas down and make some decisions so we can move forward if we want to or need to. Yeah, but we haven't put
like
any
for me,
solid hours into working out season 2.
No, yeah. I feel like for me, Life is Easy was such a huge learning experience because for Cole and I, we had never done a long form narrative screen piece before ever. I'd only done like a 3-minute documentary and then a 2-part mini series of like standalone episodes. And then the rest of the stuff that I've done has been like long form, full length theatre plays. So it was quite like a lot of learning in a very short amount of time because we were simultaneously like writers, actors, creators of the whole, and producing kind of across the whole thing. So I think by the end of it, we were just quite exhausted by the whole idea of a season 2 because it was just such a lot to just grasp and learn from. So I think having some time away from it has been amazing. And then the second burst, as Cole said, when it came out on Reverie, the response has just been so heartwarming and so surprising that I think seriously, I'm like, this boost of confidence is almost enough to push us into a season 2 because we can kind of see it through new eyes again.
Yeah, no, I know when we were doing the interview a couple of weeks ago that some of the Alice fans that were in the chat were talking about, man, once they saw the trailer that we showed back then, they're like, wow, that looks so funny. Where can I see this? And they're immediately interested, just like I was when I first saw the trailer, trying to figure out how many episodes is this. And I told this whole story that initially I was going to watch one and review it because that's what the publicist told me I could do. And I ended up watching the first 4, and then the next day I watched the other 4, and then I went back and watched them again. And every time, what's really nice about it is that every time I watch it, I pick up something else from it. It's not a one and done kind of series at all. There's so many different details going on and underlying themes, and just the performance. I mean, it's really likable, even though the characters aren't necessarily likable because of their traits and things that they look at, or the selfishness of certain people, that kind of thing.
What do you mean?
Now, for me, being the behind the scenes kind of person that I like to ask these questions, were there any scenes that you either had a concept for or actually shot that you had to cut that you wish in hindsight you had not, that had made it into one of the episodes? Like something like, oh, it doesn't quite fit, but I wish we'd actually done it because it was really funny, really done well, what have you.
There was a really beautiful scene, a beautifully shot scene that we had to redo and rewrite, essentially, that was between Curtis, when he's in Jamie Lee's body, reconnecting with his boyfriend Harry. We do have another scene like that in the version that we released. But we actually shot a really beautiful one at sunset, looking out over the harbour, and it was just so beautiful. And like our DP even captured like the sun disappearing below the horizon. It was just so gorgeous and looked amazing. But once we kind of pieced it all together, the content of the scene wasn't quite right. It just didn't quite get the story to where it needed to be at that point. So we then had to rewrite the scene and rehash it and then shoot it somewhere a little bit easier. So a similar scene made it in, but it's just, it just looked beautiful. It looked so beautiful, and I wish we could have kept that. But hey, it didn't service the story well enough.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
What about you,
the other
Charlie?
one I was thinking of.
Have I gone quiet again?
It kind of is breaking up a little bit again.
The other one I was going to say was that we had to, for some reason, I think it was story beat wise as well. Like in the edit, it just didn't work for the story. But we had a Jamie Lee's dad played by another actor who was a lovely guy, and we shot his first bit, and then we wrapped on that, and then when we pieced it all together, we realized that the beats didn't sit, and so we wanted to reshoot something else, but he wasn't available anymore, and so we had to recast him as a second. Yeah, we had to recast him out of that role, and it was just gutting because he'd put in so much great work, and we were looking forward to him being on screen with us, but that's the way it rolls sometimes, and we were working on such a tight time frame that we just had to recast. So because I think he was out of the country by then or something, but that's another, like, was a bit of a gutting moment, but the person we ended up with was lovely too. It just sucks to let people down in that way, because film just moves so fast and you have to make compromises, but there's still obviously like for our production anyway, we had such a team spirit to everything that we did. So like that was a moment that felt sad.
Yeah, no, and that's very understandable. And yeah, hearing both of those situations about the sunset scene and with Harry, and then what you just described, having to, just because of casting issues and having someone who was not available anymore, that yeah, unfortunately you'd have to move on depending on what your timeline's like. And if it's independent and very short, then it's like, well, we got to make something work because we don't have the resources or the locations or all the above to make it work. So it makes sense for sure. One thing I want to ask is, both of you obviously have theater backgrounds, and when I watched the series for the umpteenth time again, it made me think that there's let me set this up better. There's a wonderful play called Kim's Convenience out of Canada, and then they turned it into a TV show that's a comedy. It's doing very well. The TV show is much lighter than the play. I've seen the play here. They did a West Coast premiere of it a year ago. To me, Life is Easy could be made into a theater piece. It would have to be condensed a bit, but have you ever thought about doing that? I can totally envision it.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have written, I feel like I wrote a character from in a play that I put on in 2018 that is very similar to Jamie Lee. So it's kind of like, I feel like it's all fed into each other, but this character was also quite problematic, and she goes on a deliberate quest to decolonize her sexual preference towards white men by sleeping with a bunch of Asian dudes. So it's like extremely problematic, very gross, but she's kind of an anti-hero in the same way that I feel like Jamie Lee is like a very basic, problematic biracial Asian person, kind of going about everything the wrong way. Play-wise, I think that'd be interesting. I mean, I imagine you could do it as like a two-hander and have us playing all the other characters.
Oh yeah, that would be fun.
I'd love to see Cole do like Roger and Philip, the dad.
Or it could be a three-hander, and it can have us as and then another actor as everyone else.
Jack Housechild.
Jack Housechild, yes.
Who plays the Tinder boy.
Oh, I love that idea. I saw a play.
Thanks for that idea. Yeah. We're gonna we'll give you some of the royalties when we put it on Broadway.
There was a local play that did a Sherlock Holmes thing where there was like 30 parts and they had 5 people playing all the parts, and it was so funny watching them trying to change and then use a mustache, take the mustache off, and all these other. It was like intentionally funny, I believe.
Yeah.
And hey, so let me ask this other thing about. Well, I got some questions after I did the first interview that I think for a lot of Americans, and I'm not speaking for every American, but at least a lot of the ones I know, including myself, we don't really know much about New Zealand. We think about Lord of the Rings, we think about Peter Jackson, we think about Kiwi, and we don't really know much else about New Zealand. So what could you tell people that here in America that are either watching this or just in general, what should they know about New Zealand, in your opinion?
I think I just want to like immediately I jump to all of the
That's a
bad
tough
things
question.
about New Zealand because I feel like it's so easy to diss out your own country and your own stuff, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Like I want to know New Zealand. I want people to know New
Yeah,
Zealand has a dark underbelly of racism. No, I feel like New Zealand's history is something that people don't know a lot about, and I think they see our Maori white relations as being some of the best in the world, which is true, but also there are a lot of complicated aspects to that relationship that haven't been solved, and there are a lot of Indigenous reparations that haven't been made. There are a lot of ripple effects that are still hurting the Maori community today, and even though it seems easy breezy utopian, we've still got our own issues that we're working to solve. And I think, yeah, Chinese people have a very long history in New Zealand as well, similar to America. So that's kind of my perspective coming through of there is a lot of underlying racism that flared up again through COVID. But we have a really rich history of immigration from Asia that has started in like 1845 with Indian immigrants. So I think that history might not be something that a lot of people know about New Zealand. I think we have a very self-effacing attitude that people take as very charming and with a lot of humility, but it can also hold us back quite a bit. We also have extremely high rates of depression and suicide in New Zealand, which you may not know.
Yeah, no, I had no idea.
Just fun facts. What about you, Cole? What would you say about New
Yeah.
Zealand? I always struggle with this question.
Oh, I think we're having that audio issue again, Cole.
So these are really good things. I struggle with this question too because I think a lot.
Oh, he's gone out again.
Yeah, he just dropped out.
I'm sure he only had good things to say about New Zealand.
Okay.
I feel like my government's watching me.
Well, we'll see if he manages to rejoin us. Let's see here. I mean, even just kind of talking about that, like, the things that you said. Like, I had no idea that there's been such a long history of Asian immigration to the country, and that's surprising. Again, like, if someone says it to me, like, "What do you think about New Zealand?" Being from here in Seattle, Washington, I think of Lord of the Rings movies. I think of hills and greenery, and I don't think about the people so much because it's like, well, they're the ones next to Australia.
Yeah. I think Australia to me reads like Australia to me is kind of like taken a lot of influences from America, whereas I feel like New Zealand still has a lot of sensibilities towards the British. That kind of stiff upper lip, like hold in your emotions, etc. Whereas Australians feel more like they've taken culturally from America, that they're really like brash and kind of confident and like loud and proud. So that's probably the main difference culturally between New Zealanders and Australians.
Okay, interesting. Cole, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Hopefully I'm in time now. Sorry, I don't know what's going on. Usually my computer and internet's fine, but today it's being a poo. So
we don't actually have Wi-Fi in New Zealand, so
that's another thing. We don't have Wi-Fi.
Oh,
yeah.
That was a joke.
That was definitely a joke.
We were just talking about New Zealand still, and also about like how Americans think about that it's just next to Australia and that kind of thing. And Chye-Ling was kind of giving me the kind of the differences between the two, and it makes sense too.
I think a lot of how other countries see New Zealand and how we sell ourselves in like tourism and stuff is like true, and and how people see New Zealanders and our vibe and our energies is generally true. We are pretty laid back, chill kind of country, but like Chye-Ling said, that can be a bit adversive because it stops us from maybe saying what we want, striving for greatness and betterness, and that's not blanket across everyone, obviously, otherwise we wouldn't go anywhere. But yeah, in general, I feel like New Zealand can coast along and just go with the flow and be like, oh yeah, no, it's all right, but it's okay, it's fine, which is sometimes good and sometimes not so helpful.
Okay, no, that makes sense. Just like I think with people pretty much anywhere, that if you kind of go along with the flow, sometimes that can keep you out of situation, but at the same time, they can prevent you from addressing those situations or moving forward. Absolutely. Or not brushing them under the rug. So that definitely makes sense.
Yeah, and I think like culturally, when people who do kind of push for more and strive for more, and they get their opinion heard, and that's kind of seen in a negative way to a lot of New Zealanders. It's kind of this tall poppy syndrome, where you feel like where people feel like you're trying to be better than you are, when you're actually just trying to strive for more.
Okay. Well, hey, I wanted to ask something that has nothing to do with the show. We've kind of talked about it a little bit, and Cole, if you are able to hear me and stay with us, you mentioned last time that you're a horror fan or obsessed with horror. I know offline you mentioned that you signed up for Shudder, so you're watching lots of horror things. And for you, what's one of your favorite horror films? And for Chye-Ling, do you like horror? So let's start with you first.
One of my favorite horror movies. Oh my God, that's so tough. I do love like a series. Like I love a horror sequel. It doesn't matter how bad it is. I love a horror sequel. So anything that has more than like 3 movies, I'm into it. Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween, Final Destination, Saw, like all of those sorts of ones I'm so into. I really loved, it's probably more of a thriller, but I really liked Eden Lake with Michael Fassbender. That one was it called Lake Eden? It might be the other way around. I loved that. Okay. I remember watching that and being utterly thrilled by it. It was so cool. But yeah, anything with a sequel, I will watch and rewatch. Hellraiser, I've mentioned to you. There's like 8 or 9 or 10 of those movies. So.
All right, and then Chye-Ling, do you like horror films at all? And if you do you have one that you tend to still enjoy?
Well, this was one of the most difficult sticking points of Cole and I's friendship, is that he absolutely loves horror, A, B, C, D, E, F grade horrors. He loves every kind of horror, and I just hate them so much. Like, I'll get scared by anything. I'll get scared by like a bump in the night. So when I watch a horror film, I'm just sitting there shitting my pants. And most of the time that Cole and I lived together, which was about like 5 years across uni and then beyond when we both graduated, he would just make my life a living hell by watching horror movies all the time and making me watch them with him, but also just coming into my room with like a mask and a knife and just scaring the shit out of me. But I will say I do like some horror movies. I mostly really enjoy.
I never brought a knife. I don't think I ever brought a knife.
This is burned into my memory, okay? Don't tell me you did not have a knife. You had a butcher's knife from the kitchen. Anyway, I really like the movie Hereditary.
Well,
because it's psychological horrors, I think, that have like a deeper kind of purpose or moral to it. I really liked The Babadook, and I really liked. I wouldn't say this is maybe a horror, but for me, it felt almost in a similar vein, like something like Melancholia or like Annihilation. Just that simmering sense of like dread, with a message.
Okay, I for some reason when Cole told me about that a couple of weeks ago, I just kind of saw like in the future, if you guys do a season 2, not in the scene, but like on a television screen or something, there's some sort of horror film playing, or you hear a scream from somewhere, just as like a segue into some other kind of thing, that a weird little way to kind of twist in the horror element. But
yeah, we're
you know,
actually writing a horror show together, Cole and I. So we've started research on a horror show, which is a live horror show, which is going to be quite surreal, kind of psychological horror about xenophobia in New Zealand. So it's kind of got elements of just like kind of chronicling racism against Chinese people, but and with the genre of horror, so that it's still entertaining and kind of abstracted.
Oh, that sounds really, really fascinating, that concept.
Yeah.
Oh,
I have no idea how to do it yet, but we'll see how it goes.
Oh, man. Well, I want to wrap this up, but it's been so wonderful getting a chance to talk to, Chye-Ling, talking to you, Cole, when we could hear you and get you connected. It was great talking with you, obviously. But no, seriously, I love talking with both of you. The show is so wonderful. Again, for anyone out there that hasn't seen it, Life is Easy on Reverie. It's so worth your time to check it out. And at least watch the first episode. I almost guarantee you'll be hooked. It's done so well. And again, for me, it's something you can actually have repeated viewings of. And so it's been just an absolute pleasure talking to both of you. And I hope that, with the treatment you just talked about that you're working on, with the horror and the racism aspect of things, and everything else, other projects that you have, I'm going to be definitely following you guys and seeing what you come up with next. And if I get an inkling that I see something about, Life is Easy season 2, or if you change it around to Easy as Life or whatever, it's going to be right.
Oh yeah.
I'm definitely going to start getting super excited. So
awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking the time. I hope you have a good Saturday and the rest of your weekend. And everybody out there, I might see you guys in another hour and 15 minutes or so. But again, thank you so much for taking the time. And I will hopefully see you sometime down the road.
Yeah. Thanks you
so much for having us.
I hope you can hear me. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, and now you sound crystal clear.
Perfect, crystal clear. Let's start again from the top. Let's go.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
See you, Mark. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.